class. So today, the fruit and veg that I've been buying from the food initiatives are slowly adding up. Just this week, I think we've had about 5 bags of these tomatoes all together. And we've been having them, you know, every day. We've been using them as much as we can. So I've got these 3 large bags and they're just going soft now. You can see there's a little bit of moisture on the table from the bag underneath. So I've decided I'm going to can them for tomatoes, for pizza bases, for meals, for whatever we need. Instead of wasting them, I'm going to can them and see how many we get out of them. I've also got a few other vegetables and things that need to be dealt with. So these 2 peppers, basically I'll take my bag of sliced peppers out the freezer, I'll de-seed these 2 peppers, slice them as thinly as I can and just add them, and I'll just add them to the freezer bag of the peppers. I picked up these 2 garlics today from Fairclempt, and you know, they're fine. These are some nice large cloves, and I've already got my store this year from what I actually grew in the garden that I put out from last winter. So each of these cloves I will actually plant in the garden, and it's the perfect time now, this time of year, because the cold snap and the cold winter will actually help them form the cloves and produce nice big garlics, hopefully. So you plant them that way up, so you can tell where the root was. You put it that depth, and I'd say double the clothes depth, and get as many as them in now, in pots, in your beds, in your flower beds, wherever you think you can actually get them in, and get your garlic grown for next year. And that is exactly why I bought those. I don't really need garlic for eating because I should have enough now. I've pickled some of mine, I've stored them and vacuum sealed them in the canner. And I also have diced up and crushed in the freezer as well, so we've got more than enough, so they're ready for growing. The carrots don't look great, but once I've peeled that off, they're sufficient for a meal, so they'll probably get used tomorrow for a dish that may last us 2 days, depends on what I make. I might make a shepherd's pie. And the parsnips, and that's a lovely one underneath, a nice big one, will get peeled, diced and canned. One of these cabbages will also be canned, and one will be used for the shepherd's pie or for whatever it is I decide to make. So that's how I'll deal with that lot. I've already made some plum jam. And depending on how many jars I've got left after dealing with what I've got, I'm thinking of making some more plum jam. Upon strawberries, unfortunately I haven't got time to deal with it today, so I'm hoping they're okay for tomorrow. So I'm not putting them in the fridge because they always go fairy that way. So I've tied a bag around them and I'm hoping they'll last till tomorrow morning, and I should be able to get at least 1.5 jars of strawberry jam out of that like I did last time. And the rest is fruit that we'll just eat ourselves. So back to the tomatoes. So I've gotten myself 3 pans. I thought, well, each bag will be sufficient for each pan. So I'm just going to put the tomatoes in the pan. Near enough cover them with water. And then once the water heats up, you just see the skin cracking. At that point I'll empty the water out, take them over towards the sink, peel the skins off. Depending on how soft they are at that stage. I might just put my gloves on and just scoop it away from the core. The only waste we'll have is the hard bit in the middle. We don't want that going into the canning process. So we just take that hard bit out. Once they're soft enough, we just pull that apart. And then everything else will get canned up in the jars. Don't waste these. So basically that piece, if it's not, if it should, oh no, that piece will have to go in the recycling. These bits can be used for scrubbing scourers, different things, or just holding up your own vegetables that you've brought in, and you can hook them up in here to dry out or whatever it is you need it for. But they're pretty useful and can be reused for several things. Okay, so I'm going to fill these up now and put them on the boil for about 5ish minutes, or as much as they need it, and then get them ready for peeling the skin off. So whilst those tomatoes are just coming up to a good heat, I'm just going to deseed these peppers. They're a bit marked, these peppers, so I don't know how much I'll actually get off them, but okay, so here's the actual peppers deseeded. Now these seeds inside will still actually grow you some nice peppers for next year. They're normally all green, and then some will change colour to your oranges or your reds, and I've been fortunate enough this year for some of my garden peppers to actually go red. They all stayed green last year. So that's why I still buy them in the reds and yellows, because the majority have been green. But I'll be looking for the greens and yellows this year, I think, because I got quite a few reds. I haven't started picking mine yet, so we've still needed peppers to eat. So I'll carry on doing this, and then basically my peppers bag looks a bit squabbish, but the rest of the peppers will top that bag up. I'll just cut these nasty bits out that are in it, and the rest is good to go. That's what I do with my peppers. Pick them up one or two at a time and build a Ziploc bag up for the freezer, so I can take out handfuls at a time for different meals that we like peppers in. So I'll just finish these, and then we'll check on those tomatoes. So whilst those tomatoes are still cracking the skins, I'm going to crack on myself and prepare the parsnips ready for canning. So I've never actually canned these ready for a stew or just to eat them boiled or in a casserole and anything like that. We've always had them roasted, or we have had them as chips a few times, but I've never done this, so I think it's a fantastic idea to bulk out those winter stews. And you know, I just keep saying over and over, we don't know what vegetables are available in the winter most times anyway, but with the circumstances, we've got EU, we've got second wave of the corona, we've got everything else, so we don't know what imports and things like that are going to be like, so the availability of fresh vegetables mightn't be what we're used to, so make the most of what we've got now and store and prep it for when you want it, if you've got an abundance right now. When I say an abundance, it doesn't necessarily mean you're overrun with it. You know, an abundance is just more than you require. You know, whether it's 1 more, 10 more or 100 more, it's an abundance. It's more than you need right now. And little bounties like this in abundance is what's going to feed us through the winter, keep us in fresh nutrients, fill our stomachs and save any pennies that we have got for what we actually need it for. Like paying the rent, paying the mortgage. As things get difficult, more and more people will have to learn things like this. Okay, so you can get the gist of how I'm preparing these. But I normally do something that the Americans are doing more and more now. I generally raw pack the vegetables. So as I've said before, raw packing means you're packing them into the jars raw. You're not pre-cooking them, blanching them or anything else. And adding, you know, an 1/8 teaspoon of salt and preserving it that way. I have looked and I see that a lot of the Americans are struggling raw packing, parsnips in particular. So I'm actually going to finish cut and peeling these last 3. And once one of those pans behind us is free, I'll then transfer the parsnips in. So this pan basically looks like it's ready for me to start. But as I say, I want to get those cut and peel first, and then I can transfer these 2 pans over, and then we can go for releasing them from the skin. Release the hands, Roderick. So I'll come back when these are ready. Okay, so I think these are actually just about ready. So I've chopped up the parsnip, moved that to a jug with some water, and now I'm just literally lifting out the tomatoes with a drain spoon and putting them in a big bowl. Give them a chance to cool down along the way. They smell gorgeous. I've turned all the pans off. I haven't actually got any heating on tonight, and it's quite bitter in the air, you know, it's proper chill to the air tonight, so this heat from cooking is actually heating the whole house, and our son upstairs will get the most benefit because obviously the heat rises. I'm actually just going to, I might not actually because it'll contaminate it. I was going to pour those parsnips into tomato water, but I don't think I will. I don't want to risk any contamination in the thing. I couldn't see it doing much problem more. We actually lost some potatoes that we'd canned up recently, so I'd gotten a bag of frozen chips. With being excited about canning and not being able to fit them in the freezer, I thought, well, I'll have a little experiment. And I'll try. I'd seen a video on YouTube, an American guy doing it, so I thought I'll try canning the chips. So I did about 5 jars. This was before I vacuum sealed the chips. Did about 5 jars. They were on the shelf. A couple of days later I took a look, and I didn't like the look of, how can I say it, the way the liquid formed. You could actually see the starch in the water. It looked a bit gluggy to me, and I wasn't quite happy with it. Anyway, I opened one and didn't smell right, so they've all been thrown away. We're not perfect, we all make mistakes, and it's something, you know, we're new to. And you do have to be careful with canning, because if it's not vacuum sealed properly, or it forms some kind of fungus on the top of it, you can actually get botulism, and it's absolutely horrific. So, you know, use your common sense just as you would with any other food. You smell it, you look at it, you inspect it, you taste a little bit. You're happy, you're happy. That's just the way it is, and that's how you should be with food. You don't need best before dates, you don't need all that stuff. You've got eyes, you've got a nose, and you can taste with your mouth. So I think that should be sufficient. I'm just filling this up now to throw those parsnips on. Those parboiled while I put my gloves on and get ready to do the messy job. I think it's still going to be a bit hot, so let's see. Recycling, capturing my compost, and here we go. Let's just go straight in for it. So that one, that's pretty much stripped itself. Actually, I'm going to give this 5 minutes and then come back. We'll strip them and sort them then. Give those parsnips a chance to blanch. Okay, so I've left the tomatoes to cool down for a bit, and now I'm just peeling the skin back off the tomatoes. As I say, it's much easier now. I'm trying to pull it back. Easier to use a knife. Pull it back so I can get this core out, and then I'm literally going to just break up the tomato a little bit. So, whiz it round in my hand, try and get as much skin off as possible, and then try and get the core of the centre. Oh, sugar. Just missed the cameraman. 20 points. As you can see, it's a messy job, and this is why I decided to put the gloves on. So I'm literally taking the hard bit out the bottom of the tomato and just breaking the tomato into its juice. So this juice is literally out of the tomatoes. I drain the water away, and it is a messy job. So as I work my way through this, I'll come back to you in a minute when they're ready to throw in the jars. Okay, so I've squished and squeezed, and I've taken the core of the tomatoes out and squished as much tomato as I can, so we've more tomato juice and pulp really, rather than peeled tomatoes or anything like that, but this will be great for some of the meals we cook. I was actually going to use that big one, but I think I'll hold off and use 2 of these instead. I think I'll save that big one for those parsnips. Going in okay. As usual, a little bit of mess, but we can cope with that. See if we get one more. So, smaller jar, I think. And there we have it. Once I've cleaned the jars up, I'll wipe around the tops with a bit of kitchen roll and vinegar. Make sure there's nothing trapping from the tops going on. And I'll show you what setting I put them on the canner. Okay, so we've got the tomatoes canned up, and I'm just debubbling all around the jar. Make sure there's no gaps in between where any bacteria can settle, and just basically give it a little stab and a stir around, making sure there's no pockets. You do that to all of them. Just make sure there's no bubble pockets. And go all around the bottom and stab through the middle. Make sure all the little pockets are released. And then in this little tub I've got some vinegar, and as usual I just dab the tissue in the vinegar, clear the outside of the rim and the top of the rim, so you can see what a messy job I made. So we do that with all of them. Doesn't matter about any food on the inside of the rim, that's fine, and should the jar be shook or moved, you'd get that anyway. So we just make sure that the seal parts are clean. And I'm quite happy with that. Just bear with me. And now I'm going to do the same with the parsnips. So the parsnips we parboiled, and then I've just topped up with normal tap water. I didn't want to use the water they'd actually parboiled in because I thought the starch would just make them cloudy and maybe turn them mushy quicker. So I decided to use just normal tap water. It's a bit more awkward when food's in chunks and you're still trying to remove air pockets. I think that one's okay. You can actually see the bubbles on the top of this jar coming to the surface where I'm actually poking in and releasing the pockets. And you can still see these bubbles. So just keep releasing. Until those bubbles go. Okay, now I've put 1/8 teaspoon of salt in each of these, so that should be okay for the preserving. I'm just going to use the same tissue. I'll give these 3 a wipe. See, that's what you get. You get fruit flies when you have all the food hanging around. And that's why I'm trying to work through everything to get all of the surfaces. What a problem to have too much fresh fruit and veg. I'd rather that than any other issues in life. Right, so put the top on. So we've got the parsnips and we've got that. So I'm going to do 60 for 60, I think. So stay to this. I'm going to take it up to 60 minutes. And I'm going to take it down to 60 degrees. And I'm going to let that work its magic. So basically, take about 20 minutes to heat up. It'll do the 60-minute run. And then give it another 20 minutes or so to cool down within itself, because you don't want to open these straight away and release all the steam and the hot air, because if the glass is actually, it's like the conduction and convection that I explained with the heat of the glass. So we heat them up in the oven if we're putting hot food into them. So the glass is the same temperature as the hot food. If we're putting cold food in, like today, we don't need to heat the jars, just make sure they're clean and sterilised. So to sterilise my jars, I just wash them normally in washing up liquid, and then I rinse them through in white vinegar, making sure they're fully and completely clean, and that's how I sterilise them. Also, if you're putting them in the oven anyway, the heat sterilises them as well. So yeah, that's on for 60 on 60. When, as I say, you've released the heat, you have to give it at least 20 minutes, half an hour. Don't do it straight away, because the dramatic cool down can actually spoil your food, and it gives your food in the canning trade what's actually called as a flat sour, or a sour flat. Basically means it weakens the standards of your food, basically, so it can just take the edge off the flavourings or whatever. It'll still preserve, it'll still be there, but I can't explain it. It's just called a flat sour, and it just ruins the integrity of the taste of the food that you initially wanted. So we'll leave that, and I'll show you what it's like when we take them out. And there we have it. 4 jars of tomatoes ready to go on the pantry shelf, and 3 jars of parsnips ready for stews, casseroles, etc. to go on the pantry shelf. So rather than waste it and let it rot away because I haven't got time to cook it because I'm a bit too busy cooking other things, preserve it and keep it for later. Okay, I hope you try some of these recipes, and I'll see you soon. Bye.